It is not bitter. It is not performative. It is authentic. And Christine's not simply getting by for the first time in years. She's radiant. She's arriving in bright color, new lipstick, a new surname, and a husband who appears to look at her not as part of an institution, but as an individual. And yet, even as she moves toward this new era, the past has not yet released. There are rumors of voicemail transcripts, bank statements stored in fireproof boxes, a funeral that altered everything but no one will discuss why. Fans are beginning to get it. Family members are falling silent. And the network? Oh, let's just say their quiet is deafening. But Christine, throughout it all, is calm, focused, grounded. She's not here to ruin anything. She's simply not going to carry the burden anymore. She didn't scream. She didn't point fingers. Christine Brown simply walked away and took the truth with her. At the back of her memoir, she humbly rewrites all we supposed we knew about her marriage, her family, and the show that made her famous. What she shares, it's not anger, it's freedom, and it transforms everything. You won't believe what she finally said aloud. Watch now. She didn't shut the door. She didn't scream or place blame. She simply stopped pretending. And in some way, that silent departure has shocked a family, a TV empire, and an entire generation of women raised to shut up, stay sweet, and stay put. This is not the tale of a scandal. It's the tale of a woman who finally chose herself. But what makes this tale strong isn't so much what she said, it's what she didn't say. Christine Brown has been a familiar face in living rooms across the country for over a decade. To fans of Sister Wives, she was the bright one, the cheerful one, the one who always found a way to keep the peace. She smiled through the chaos, held the family traditions together, played the role of supportive wife even when the spotlight grew heavy and the cracks began to show. But something changed. Not loudly, not suddenly. You might almost overlook it if you weren't very, very sure you were looking. A word removed from her bio, a picture silently untagged, and then the book-old title, Old Voice, until the final 32 pages. That's where the story starts. Have you ever seen someone walk away so beautifully? It wasn't until much, much later that you noticed just how much they were holding. That's what this feels like. Christine didn't merely exit a marriage. She exited an identity. She exited the architecture that formerly governed her days, her religion, even her own sense of who she was. And she left without apology, without poison, and without torching the whole thing. She instead opened a door for herself, and for every woman who's ever asked in a stifled tone, "Is this all there is?" If you've ever been the one making peace and your own needs waited in the back seat, if you've ever smiled during something that was quietly shattering your heart, if you've ever lingered too long because leaving felt like failure, then Christine's tale may strike more in line than you might anticipate. Because this is more than about one family. It's about the unseen price of loyalty, the quiet burden of self-sacrifice, and the instant you know that you can want more. The show always showed the Browns as a team of quirky, loving family getting it done under one non-traditional roof. But behind the matching teas and family excursions was a dynamic that wasn't always so even. Christine's revised memoir does not scream about that unfairness. She demonstrates it page by page, moment by moment. No theatrics, just transparency. She recollects moments that made her feel love and how they had started to feel like they were staged. She discloses a holy piece of paper, a covenant that she used to believe in so much, a promise that came to feel like a performance piece over time. And most remarkably of all, she sets out the figures, not in a spirit of vengeance, but in a show of respect for what she went through. Because sometimes it's not sufficient to describe something as having felt wrong. Sometimes you have to establish it for yourself in black and white. When Christine released her claim to the title of Sister Wife, she didn't simply swap one label for another, she rewrote the script. And that reverberated throughout the show, the family, and the model of love that had been shared with millions. Here's where it gets good. Christine never once blames others. She never plays the name-calling game. She never demolishes others to erect a pedestal for herself. She just tells what occurred and allows the truth to speak for itself. And perhaps that's why it's so compelling. Because when a woman takes back her voice not with anger, but with steadfast determination, it impacts differently. She reports that, off camera, he confessed that their spiritual affiliation was for show purposes, something they did to placate the church and preserve appearances. That whispered confession speaks more than it appears. If Cody ever actually felt that way, followers are now asking what else was said when the cameras weren't rolling. What other secrets never made it to broadcast? Christine, in the meantime, holds it together in public. She's been promoting the book with her usual poise, giving teasers and urging her fans with warmth and optimism. And perhaps that makes her tale so quietly revolutionary. Because it's not necessarily about breaking free from something broken, it's about creating something better. So, if you've ever had to shrink to be safe, if you've ever lost your voice to maintain the peace, if you've ever thought that love equaled staying, even when it was hard, then stay with us, because Christine's story may be hers alone, but it could just assist you in rewriting yours. It just feels like this gigantic injustice is being perpetrated against me. He's not an equitable man, particularly not with finances. He's outright greedy, and truly, I believe he's going to leave Mary and Janelle in the lurch. That's what Kody Brown was alluding to when she made a bombshell announcement. Her forthcoming memoir suddenly grew from 288 pages to 320 weeks before it was going to go to print. Fans hardly had a chance to blink before the speculation began. Slapping on 32 pages so late in the process? That's not subtle editing, that's a full-scale rewrite in a panic. From publishing insiders, it wasn't stuffing either. It was incendiary. Those added pages were inserted into the final manuscript out of nowhere, and they reportedly contain Christine's most candid, unvarnished admissions yet. Some of those segments even question the very essence of her spiritual union with Kody Brown, proposing the entire endeavor was nothing more than a carefully crafted illusion. And that's where it all begins to truly fall apart. There's rumor of a paragraph so clear, so forceful, that it gave her editors pause. A source close to the publishing team, who wished to remain anonymous, told it was so powerful they didn't even want to subject it to the legal department. Instead, they just asked Christine one thing: "Are you sure you want this out?" And she was. Now, that sentence, whatever it is, going directly to bookstores nationwide. Christine's never been one to fling every piece of dirty laundry. But this time, she's not hiding anything. She sits and thinks. It's just so odd to consider. I was married to a man who had intimate relationships and kissed other women, and I okayed it. I thought it was okay because that was what our religion taught us. That's what we did. In retrospect, she can't even imagine ever being comfortable with it. But then, she says, she was on board. For years, she was the loyal wife. She smiled through awkward silences and attended all those forced family dinners. But that's a different Christine. That's her minus filters, minus producers, minus everyone else's edits to cover up the fissures. And just as you think she's finished, the actual twist comes. Early versions of the memoir, distributed to a handful of advance reviewers, begin quietly and contemplatively, then suddenly shift. One of the newly included pages begins with a sentence that leaves readers gasping. The truth is, I was never really married. Christine continues to explain her spiritual union, not as sacred or mutual, but as an act, something performed to make her feel chosen, even when she was never actually so. That strikes like a gut punch. Christine isn't merely telling us that her marriage was off balance. She's telling us the whole relationship was an emotional drama. For longtime viewers, it's a bitter pill to take. We saw her have 6 children in that home, under the delusion of mutual love. We witnessed her sitting next to Robin and smiling as if all was right. But Christine is now telling us she was gradually coming to realize beneath the surface that she never had Cody's full attention. Not emotionally, not spiritually. And the cracks in the foundation run deeper still. There's a chilling moment in the memoir when Christine remembers talking about something that never made the show. She remembers asking, "Did you ever tell Cody, this sucks?" But she confesses they never discussed it. They didn't need to. They both knew something was amiss, and it wasn't just a suspicion. As reported, Christine directly quotes Cody in one of the new pages. But behind that placid smile, there's a whole new depth emerging. Sources indicate that those final 32 pages are Christine's line in the sand. They weren't only for Cody, they were a message to the whole culture she used to live in, and to the show that defines so much of her public persona. And the biggest revelation, according to those who've seen ahead, isn't even in those pages, it's what she does next. Before she ever sat down to write this memoir, the truth was already leaking out. The cameras may have been rolling, but Christine says fans were already picking up on her weariness. The tired eyes, the smile that didn't quite reach her cheek, the scripted lines that didn't match her body language. Sometimes, the lens sees what we're too afraid to say. She admits in the book that it was those past episodes, the ones she returned to view, that eventually compelled her to confront how profoundly her own denial had been. "I told myself I was happy," she writes, "but it was not true. And secretly, I think I knew it all along." That moment of candor is the tone for what she has termed her truth chapter. And insiders report that phrase wasn't an afterthought, it was her last goodbye to the secrecy she'd been maintaining for years. But there is one scene that will linger with readers even after the pages turn. She talks about recording a group discussion about the religious attractiveness of plural marriage. The wives were speaking the right words. But behind the scenes, Christine says she felt empty. It felt like we were actors, she states. And I was the happy wife. I played that costume well until I just couldn't anymore. Assistant. And for those who've been tuning in since season 1, that image is not easy to erase. But here's what may surprise fans most: Christine reveals that many of her most profound insights did not emerge from hushed telephone calls or intimate therapy sessions. They emerged from seeing herself on television. In one section, she details a show in which she is on air, declaring that she is happy as a mother and as a wife. But in the margin of her own script copy, according to reporting, she scribbled one devastating sentence: "This is the biggest lie I ever told." She wasn't alone in her secrets. It's not only powerful, it's elegant, confident, and strikingly articulate. This isn't a woman reflecting back with remorse. This is Christine Brown stepping firmly into a whole new chapter. And while that transition may be subtle to fly-by fans, insiders at TLC reportedly felt the difference right away. Christine's Twitter once said, "Sister wife, mom, reality TV." Today, the reality TV reference lingers but faintly. The words sister wife have disappeared, as if the term just no longer fits. And to be honest, maybe it doesn't. The day Christine submitted those last 32 pages of her memoir, she also supposedly informed her crew she was finished. No longer brand merchandising within the Sister Wives franchise. That included no shoutouts, no cameos, and most significantly, no shared appearances with Cody or Robin. One producer described it as an unofficial resignation, saying she didn't have to say a word. Her silence was deafening. You can almost sense the change in the wind, can't you? Janelle hasn't made the same transition, at least not yet. Her bio still offers a courteous mention of the show, and she's the sole brown woman who maintains a wary toe in both camps. But Christine? She's out. And it shook fans, but it shook TLC too. As a reportedly widely disseminated, but unsubstantiated insider leak claims, the network's talent liaison placed a frantic call to Christine's publishing representative less than 48 hours after the last book file was in for print. Why? TLC supposedly feared Christine had officially checked out of the show, leaving them wondering whether they were now in violation of contract for exploiting her likeness to sell the current season. Whether or not that late-night phone call actually occurred, the timing could not have been more ominous. Just as Christine started trolling her four-city book tour, New York, New Jersey, Chicago, Salt Lake City pre-orders spiked and producers suddenly fell silent. No repost, no promo, no mention. TLC would ordinarily promote a star's public outing on social media. Not this time, not even a rumor. That same creepy quiet now spreads across the show's core cast account, as if every one of them waits for the other to make a move first. But Christine's not waiting. She already stole the spotlight and she's not relinquishing it. She's appearing at appearances in bright colors, red lipstick, and with her new husband David beside her. Not a sister wife, not even an ex-sister wife, just Christine. And from what early readers say, the memoir isn't just a personal one. It's a low-key strategic divorce, not just from Cody, with whom she was never officially married, but from the whole system that forced her to be quiet for so long. And in the last subtle gesture, Christine makes her desires absolutely clear. At the end of the memoir, there's a page with her revised bio printed in a footnote, a subtle but strong message. If you need to learn about who I am today, read it again. But fans crave more than simply a fresh title. They need to know what finally encouraged her to leave. And Christine's response? It begins with a piece of paper. Not just any paper, something Cody once called sacred. She writes about the moment it all clicked. The day she stopped trying to convince herself that being spiritually married was enough. The moment the whole idea of a shared life became so flimsy, so performative, that even pretending felt like betrayal. That moment of truth came when, reading an old document, a handcrafted covenant Cody purportedly created himself. Fancy paper, cursive script, even a wax seal sticker. Christine stored it in a fireproof safe for years, holding it as evidence of something holy. But now, in hindsight, she realizes what it truly was. Not a promise, a script. A performance to keep her in line, loyal, submissive, and believing that this situation was just as much a true marriage as any actual one. Except, as she puts in a margin note, It only mattered when it benefited him. It's a soft sentence, but it shakes like a thunderclap. The covenant, Christine asserts, referred to spiritual oneness, mutual responsibilities, and emotional leadership. But Cody, she asserts, maintained none of these. And for the first time, Christine calls it what it was: religious code for emotional manipulation. And behind every forever family ideal was a woman waiting for love that never arrived. That paper had no force in law. It wasn't signed before a notary. It wasn't recorded anywhere. But Christine did believe it. She had roots with the AUB, the Apostolic United Brethren. Her family was lineaged back to Rulon Allred himself. She believed in sacred calling, in everlasting bonds, in staying sweet and being strong. But after a while, that covenant did not feel comforting anymore. It began to feel like a chain. Christine says the contract provided Cody with something to hold over her, evidence that she had made this choice willfully. And when she attempted to leave, that same document, she says, was used against her as proof of spiritual debt. But she didn't leave just the paper behind. She left the man who penned it. And as publishing sources report, she didn't leave empty-handed. According to an insider, Christine included a financial footnote in the revised manuscript, a comparison of what she spent on during those covenant years versus what Cody spent. If the figures are true, they tell a sobering tale. Thousands of dollars. Christine purportedly paid for childcare, groceries, school, shelter, all while being dutiful wife in a situation that afforded her no official status. And perhaps worst of all, seeing her children feel as though they were second in command in their own father's life. Fans who've read this part maintain this is where Christine's book shifts tone completely. So far, her tale sounds like one of self-discovery and maturation. But here, gloves come off. The mask falls away. Christine doesn't merely declare that the spiritual marriage didn't work, she declares that it was used as leverage against her. And that has fans wondering one haunting question. If she's had that covenant document all these years, what else is in that fireproof safe? The series tiptoed around the money topic year after year, but viewers always suspected something was off. And now, Christine verifies it. The 32 additional pages supposedly include bottom line, not emotions, not memories, real figures. Christine, with assistance from Janelle, allegedly recreated a timeline of who sent what and where the funds went. And the outcome was? It's devastating. Fans already report that one line is going viral. We all gave, but only one house got. That line, accompanied by a side-by-side comparison of household contributions, allegedly reveals all. Shared family funds did not go to shared family goals. They went again and again into Robin's home. Christine needn't name names. The arithmetic is enough. This part of our lives, it's over. And if we can still be friendly, I'd truly welcome that. Christine speaks those words softly, not bitter, not angry, just finished. But what makes them hit harder is the way she lays out the facts that come next, not in anger, but in receipts. Christine isn't serving up petty shots. She's serving up the figures. And figures don't lie. Sources note that the memoir contains real screenshots of outdated expense reports, PayPal payments, and line items from the shared family account. Janelle even maintained a handwritten log, counting every time they bought something Cody said he would pay back and never did. It wasn't a matter of one or two forgotten payments. Christine describes a system set up to appear equitable but wasn't. And this time, she's not whispering anymore. She reports that although the wives were instructed to serve the family never actually served them back, at least not on equal terms. One of the people close to the publishing staff reported that Christine questioned whether or not to include the breakdown of money at all. It wasn't revenge, she explained to them. It was transparency. And that transparency packs a freight train punch. Christine discusses how they celebrated Valentine's Day with family, no romantic pressure, only good-spirited fun. Cody would give flowers to every wife in front of all the cameras, sometimes a peck on the cheek and 2 kisses, attempting to appear fair. But were those flowers ever really equal? Was that kissing truly for theme or for the cameras? And under all that cringeworthy choreography, Christine quietly kept score. Her readers have a right to know, she states, that leaving wasn't an emotional decision. It was an economic imperative. She adds a sentence or two that's already creating buzz. There comes a point when you realize the loyalty isn't mutual. You give your last dollar, and they're still asking for more. That line hits particularly harsh for viewers who recall those early years when Christine was depicted counting pennies as other houses never appeared to struggle. And then comes the bombshell. According to early readers, Christine includes a receipt for a joint PayPal transfer dated the very night One of the most emotionally intense confrontations aired between her and Cody. She doesn't spell it out, but the date lines up perfectly. The implication? While Christine's heart was being broken on camera, someone else was moving money behind the scenes. If that's true, it wasn't just personnel, it was calculated. Christine shares how she always felt self-conscious about PDA, even with Cody. Now, with David, she openly kisses and hugs, even in front of the children. What changed? Someone asks her. Her reply is straightforward. Everything. Confidence. That kind of confidence only develops when you stop performing. And that's what this chapter of the book appears to show: performance versus truth. Love can be complicated, Christine appears to say, but math doesn't lie. And if the numbers reveal selective generosity and backroom deals, then the whole notion of one big happy family falls apart. Fans are already wondering, if Christine and Janelle have these receipts, who else does? Behind closed doors, TLC was reportedly in a state of panic. As soon as insiders caught wind of Christine's book having expanded 32 additional pages filled with bank records, raw emotional truths, and explicit commentary on Cody's actions, the network purportedly went into full damage control. It was undeniable. The story had changed. An insider from the production team painted the internal chaos: emails flying between departments: marketing, publicity, legal. The question wasn't so much what Christine wrote, it was, how quickly can we switch tracks before this blows up? It's surreal to consider, particularly because the original intention was so different. TLC had apparently planned to coast on the release of Christine's book. The initial plan billed it as a gentle follow-up to the show, a cozy, behind-the-scenes look that would drive ratings. But when the final pages arrived at the last minute, everything shifted. One veteran producer reportedly deemed it a torpedo. And that is an apt metaphor, because this wasn't just Christine breaking up. This was her tearing down the very ground TLC had constructed with her for more than a decade. And it only got worse. Cody, angry, lashed out on screen. He criticized Christine for moving to Utah, the most anti-polygamy state in the nation, and engaging with a man, David, who he implied only wanted their wealth. He said he'd seen it happen before. Christine didn't directly name him, but her pen responds forcefully. What she discovered wasn't a userit, was true love. That's biting contrast, and Christine wasn't surprised. As it happens, she might have negotiated her liberty decades ago. Word is that Christine included in her contract a provision that would permit her to give frank account in a memoir, provided she didn't mention TLC employees or production secrets. And if so, then all of this reveal was according to a long game. Because when TLC received those reworked pages at last, they were not merely reading a narrative, they were reading Christine's game plan for leaving, and she played by the rules strictly. Insiders claim that's what left the legal team most shocked. She didn't breach her contract, she didn't break NDAs, she just spoke her truth with receipts and left them with no recourse to silence her. The ripple effects were instantaneous. Scheduled appearances were scrubbed, promo posts dwindled to a trickle. Overnight, Janelle was doing one-on-one interviews, whereas Christine's name and image vanished from recent TLC social media updates. Not even a birthday greeting. That silence was deafening. But this is what makes this entire situation even more effective. Christine didn't go nuclear. She didn't throw names around. She didn't sue them. She didn't attack. She just calmly walked away, self-assured, steadfast, and armed. And in walking away, she punched the network more effectively than any tabloid scandal ever could. Because when a woman who stood in front of the lens for 15 years leaves with nothing but her honesty and a bestseller, everybody else has no choice but to stop and take a good look at themselves. Now fans are wondering, did Janelle have a similar clause in her contract? Is this the first domino, or is another tell all already on the horizon? And if Christine did have a plan B the entire time, who knows if she was the only one? As Christine worked toward freedom with every word she wrote, the rest of the Brown clan was secretly breaking apart. The splintering didn't begin recently. It's been happening for years, but those new pages of hers, particularly the last ones, might have just solidified what longtime fans have long suspected all along. There's one scene in those final chapters that's especially haunting. Christine describes a funeral. She doesn't mention names, but she calls it the time when all that she thought she'd come to terms with broke at last. Fans think she's talking about the tragic funeral for Garrison Brown, a moment which has caused emotional ripple waves throughout the whole family, especially given McKelty and Tony's more open discussion on their Patreon. And what Christine goes on to say cuts deep. She discusses observing individuals prioritize appearance over actual connection, quiet over comfort. She doesn't mention Cody's name, but the emotion is unmistakable. She remembers standing beside someone who couldn't even look her in the eye and acknowledging that grief had become just another act. That sort of quiet heartache hurts worse than any tantrum ever could. And for viewers observing the agonizing, slow disintegration of Mykelti and Robin, it all makes sense. Soon after the funeral, Mykelti and Tony came forward to announce their withdrawal from Kody and Robin. They didn't provide specifics, but they indicated events surrounding the funeral. And now, with Christine's memoir filling in blanks, fans are filling in the gaps. Was that funeral the turning point not only in their mourning, but in the act everyone had been pretending at for far too long? At about the same time, Christine's revised book hit the headlines. Fans picked up on something peculiar. Robin stealthily unfollowed nearly all Brown family members on Instagram. Janelle, Mary, Christine, even Mykelti, who used to refer to herself as Robin's bonus baby. Only Aspen is left, and even her page is set to private. It was as if Robin was attempting to hit the reset button prior to the tidal wave. But what is so creepy? Robin doesn't blog much. She lurks, and her Pinterest account gives a completely different picture. More recently, her pins have turned dark quotes of betrayal, heartbreak, abandonment. One says, "God is your source, not people, not your job, not your connections." Another is, "What feels shattered beyond repair is still in his hand." It's jarring. While Christine is out there urging women to stand up, start anew, and take back their lives, Robin appears stuck on a haze of biblical tragedy, hanging on to metaphors of heavenly justice and shattered trust. It's as if they're in two totally different realities. Christine moving on glowing, unrepentant, liberated. Robin grieving a conception of the family that may never have been there in the first place. But despite all the disclosures, Christine hasn't crossed one threshold. She still hasn't identified the man she was standing next to during that funeral. She hasn't revealed precisely what was said. And insiders believe that's no coincidence, because as close sources close to the family confirm, there's still one thing Christine hasn't let loose: a voicemail, one that's been whispered about for decades, a message that, if ever it hits the public eye, could finally shed the last layer. So what now? Is Christine done sharing her story, or is she only just beginning? In the weeks since her new memoir was released, something remarkable has occurred. Christine's publisher has been inundated with emails, DMs, even letters written by hand, from Arizona, from Utah, from Texas, some anonymous, some tear-inducing, some signed in shaking hands and the words, "I finally feel seen." Because Christine didn't merely write a book, she cracked a window. She taught women that they can challenge the rules they grew up with. That silence is not holy. That survival is possible by walking away. Sources say, quietly, nonprofit organizations and advocacy networks have begun making contact, some aimed at assisting women in escaping spiritual manipulation, others providing emotional or legal aid for women leaving closed groups. And word is Christine has already had a couple of those meetings, quietly, off camera. There's even rumor that she could assist in initiating a fund for women leaving polygamous groups, providing housing allowances, referrals for therapy, an actual lifeline. Whether or not it becomes reality, the change is true. This is no longer merely about Sister Wives. This is Christine moving into something greater. And her Instagram attests, once loaded with promo photos and upbeat captions, now her posts have substance. "This is when I thought I had to be quiet," she captioned one vintage family photo. "This was the moment I began to see through it." For women in their 50s and older, particularly those who've spent decades putting everyone ahead of themselves, those posts don't just ring true, they thunder. But not everyone's partying about Christine's new voice. Sources report that Cody views it all as a personal attack. He apparently told someone close to him that Christine is rebranding herself off betrayal, but even that remark confirms Christine's point. She didn't violate the covenant, she escaped from it. And that's why her message is resonating so profoundly not only with women who are exiting polygamy, but with anyone who has ever escaped toxic work environments, relationships, or belief systems that cause them to shrink. Because Christine isn't screaming, she's not ranting, she's simply finished being silent. And that makes her more threatening to the old way of thinking than any front page ever was. Insiders confirm she's even met with a big-name lawyer who handles cult exit cases. The meeting reportedly took place discreetly in New York. No Twitter, no pomp and circumstance, just a backroom discussion that might mean something huge. If Christine really does go all in on advocacy, What would the future hold for Sister Wives? For Cody? For TLC? Because make no doubt about it, she's not going away. Meanwhile, what did Cody do? Anything but remain calm. As soon as the revised memoir came out and the headlines began piling up, sources claim he went into full-out damage control mode. Not the calculating kind, the desperate, frantic kind. He supposedly contacted 2 tabloids, making them deal offers in return for stories portraying Christine as emotionally manipulative. One editor, speaking off the record, said that they were asked to describe her as unstable and revisionist. But fans saw something else as well. Cody's inactive cameo account suddenly resurfaced with a series of tearful, meandering tirades. In one now-deleted video, he allegedly stated people write books for money when they can't handle commitment. Another had him walking back and forth in a partially completed room, asking who actually gave up in their so-called spiritual marriage. Christine's publisher soon afterward got a cease and desist, but legal analysts who are knowledgeable about TLC contracts indicate that it won't hold. Christine didn't name crew. She didn't assign dollar amounts to anyone but herself. It's all presented as personal memory, private thought. That is, bulletproof. And that's what hurts the most. Because for Cody, control wasn't ever just about the relationships. It was about controlling the narrative. Christine just took that away. And as her book ascends bestseller lists, attracting new followers from outside the show's initial target audience, Cody's control of the story is unraveling quickly. Behind the scenes, TLC is also running scared. A producer suggested dividing the next season into 2 segments focused on Robin and Cody's dwindling household, the other tracking Christine and Janelle as they establish independent lives, according to sources. But there is an issue. The higher Christine climbs, the shorter Cody's tail gets. He's no longer the focus. He's the representation of everything they had left. That's why, as per one report, Cody is attempting to sell a rebuttal speciale TV counter to Christine's narrative. But the problem is, there can't be a correction when someone is just relating her truth. Christine didn't blemish him. She didn't embellish. She just woke up and put it in words. And now the fans are wondering, what do you do when your identity is constructed on leadership, but your followers have been moving on? What do you do when the silence is broken and the narrative continues on without you? Because for the very first time, it's Christine that's got the mic. And Cody? He's just yelling into thin air. In the last chapter of her book, the very last few pages of that now infamous 32-page addendum, Christine doesn't go nuclear, she whispers. She writes, "I stopped being a wife the moment I stopped lying to myself. It's not a takedown. It's not a dagger. It's a whisper eulogy for a part she no longer does, a love that was never received, a system she finally left behind. There are no grand accusations, no screaming exits, only a letter to herself, a consideration of the years she spent acting happy, and when she stopped faking. And that's why her book is speaking to you, not because it's unusual, but because it's not. So many women have been in marriages, houses, even belief systems that seemed holy on the outside but were quietly killing them on the inside. Christine's book doesn't provide vengeance. It provides something much more difficult to find, permission to leave with integrity. And now there are whispers about what's next. Others say a companion book is in the making about spiritual breakups, religious deprogramming, or learning to take back your space after years of shrinking to fit someone else's love. Others think a speaking tour is already being planned, a docuseries, even a foundation. Nothing set in stone yet, but the movement is on. Because Christine isn't disappearing into the shadows. She's not a discard, not a footnote, not the ex-wife with a tragic tale. She's the survivor. And this time, she holds the lens. While the Sister Wives universe is on the edge, Cody and Robin are getting quieter each day, retreating into Pinterest mottos and half-hearted birthday greetings. Janelle is holding firm, measured, dropping beats that she's not finished yet. And fans? They don't tune in for drama anymore. They're tuning in for the next woman to speak, for the next truth bomb to land, for the last chapter of a franchise that's already self-destructing in front of us. So now it's your turn. Did you think Christine finally spoke the truth we weren't supposed to hear? And will quiet courage inspire the others to do the same? If you're still reading, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned, because the next video on your screen is already a go. And trust me, you don't want to miss it.